Welcome back, explorers. I'm David, that's Wesley, and this is the Trailcast.
The weekly show that gets so far off track, you'll have to stick around to see just where we end up.
Snow lands on top.
That's right, today we're talking about the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. That is right. Today we are talking about the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which we actually haven't seen yet.
Kind of bad too, because it's been out for a couple of days already, and then when this comes out, it'll been out for like a week.
Yeah.
So
It's it's unfortunate that you guys all had to wait for one person to get there before you could watch the movie.
Yeah, I know. I mean, if you just lived closer, Maggie, we could all go and see it together, and then wouldn't have been a problem.
Sorry to make everyone wait till Friday, since you guys all live close enough to go without me.
Yeah. So
see, I was okay with seeing it twice, but no one wanted to do that. So
yeah. So as of right now, we have not seen the movie, but we will have when towards the end of the podcast. Y'all aren't gonna notice any difference, but so today we've got a pretty packed show. We've got Trailcast News starts off with, and we're gonna talk about kind of our thoughts going into the movie. Then Friday or Saturday we're gonna record the rest of it, and we're gonna talk about the movie, and then we'll get into Trailcast trivia and possibly what's new with you, depending on time.
So be sure to stick around.
All right, let's go ahead and jump right into Trailcast News. So, Wesley, you were gone at the time because you cut out, but Maggie actually has some articles as well too. So
good, because I only have like 1.5. So
all right, well, Maggie,
I kind of forgot. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of forgot. But yeah, Maggie, let's hear what you got first.
Okay, well, I didn't do too many. Didn't want to take over the segment, but I did have to come on and say this because I knew, talking about movies and TV shows, this was never going to get talked about unless I came on here and said so. So let's talk about the Eras Tour movie. It's very important. Okay, it's important. It's important. It actually had the highest first day ticket sales of any movie in 2023.
wow,
Putting it up there with Star Wars The Force Awakens, which is crazy. And it's the highest concert movie of all time, including beating out
David,
just...
I have a question.
Yes, David.
David, I have a question for you. So wait. You remind me this because I think I did. So I did go see the movie when it came out because Sarah wanted to see it. Didn't I mention that on the podcast?
I think so. Yeah.
All right, Maggie. That was all that we needed to hear about it. So I mean, so
how did I miss that? Was it on? I'm not gonna ask.
I don't know which one it was on.
Okay. This is our 39th of these things. I've lost track of what we talked about in which episode.
Well, I just thought it needed to be repeated for those people out there that are listening that really wanted to hear that information.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. I mean, Taylor Swift is popular, so I mean,
So what exactly is the movie about? Is it like?
It's her concert. It's the Eras Tour, but they just videoed it. It's actually really good oh my goodness, cinematography.
So it's literally just a video of one of the concerts.
Of like two of them, and they like splice them, and you can't really tell. It's 2 different nights technically, but it's really good. The cinematography is really good. It's really clear, like really clear. I think it's awesome. They cut out.
She came out after the show. Yeah. across worldwide. She came out
Yeah.
to all the cinemas.
So every single showing of the show, she was there and came out and talked to us afterwards. Yeah.
David, you should have gone. You could have gotten an autograph. I mean, aren't you better than what's his face, Kelsey? Right? You know, football.
Travis Kelce.
Maybe get a new girlfriend. Yeah.
Wesley,
I give you full permission to marry Taylor Swift, and she can be my cousin. I'm fine with that.
Wesley, what do you have?
What do I have? Oh, David, what do I have? I do not have Taylor Swift for you. Yeah, that's a weird way to phrase that, but that's the way I phrased it. So, anyways, I have
More internet problems.
We should have let him go first.
This is gonna be a fun one to edit.
cut it out again. I swear.
Oh, he's back.
I'm fine on my end, and then I'm fine on my end, and then all of a sudden y'all like, oh, he's cutting out again. I don't know what's going on here. Well, I'm not gonna read the article because I need my phone to sit off to the side. Am I on or am I getting cut out?
You're back.
I can't see you, but your sound's.
I got your audio and video, so you're good.
Well, alrighty. Well, all right. So first things first, David. Okay, actually, no, Maggie. I want to ask you. How did you feel? We're all Office fans here. How did you feel when in Multiverse of Madness, John Krasinski came out playing Mr. Fantastic? How did you feel about that?
I haven't seen that.
Never mind then. You've heard of it though, right? At least.
I did.
You don't keep up with any Marvel?
Playing that, yeah.
Okay. Well, obviously, fans. David, how did you feel about it? I know you saw it, so how did you feel about it?
I mean, he's who I wanted to play Reed Richards, so that was awesome.
Yeah, he's fan casted. He's who everyone wanted to play Reed Richards, right? Well, actually, no, he's not who everyone wanted to play Reed Richards. There's a new person that is rumored and all but, from what I've heard, all but confirmed, like by Marvel, to be playing Reed Richards in the upcoming Mr. Fantastic.
I had this one too, and
I think you did.
So it's almost it's all but confirmed he's working on that project. But Marvel hasn't confirmed which role he's actually playing, and there's two that I think would fit him. One I would prefer more than Reed Richards, but Reed Richards is the one everyone wants to be. But why don't you go ahead and tell everyone who is?
So I'm gonna be honest here. I don't know why he would do this because he's signing probably I don't know why he or Marvel would want to do this to drag this out even longer. I don't know why he or Marvel would either one want to do this because he's going to cost a lot and probably have to sign on for a bunch of movies, and he's getting a little older. However, the band we're talking about here is Pedro Pascal.
The Mandalorian.
Yeah. The Mandalorian having to come in and he's not doing the Mandalorian anymore. All he's doing is voiceover for that now, if he does any more of that. So
yeah, he wasn't even on set for season 3.
Maggie's in shock.
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't watched The Mandalorian. I didn't know he was the Mandalorian.
Yeah, he's the Mandalorian.
I really need to watch that.
Catch up on some stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you need to catch up on some stuff.
Yeah.
I know. I haven't watched Star Wars TV yet.
But yes,
David, who is the other person that he's rumored to possibly be playing? I've only heard Mr. Fantastic.
So the other one that I've heard, and this is like also kind of more my personal fan cast, is Doctor Doom. He's really, I mean, just from The Mandalorian, you can tell he's really good at acting, with those kind of roles where you don't really see his face.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the thing you sent me the other day with Mads Mikkelsen. him playing Doctor Doom. I know he's been in the MCU before. I could care less. I feel like he'd play an amazing Doctor Doom
Yes.
as like the entire role, even just outside of playing the mask, like the face of it. I think he could do a good job of doing that. And but I understand like they might want to have a new actor in there, and they might. I mean, obviously Pedro Pascal does amazing job with playing without his face being on screen, and with how busy his schedule is, it's probably better. He can just voice over everything. But
I mean, what he's
yeah, I'm
got.
not sure.
Actually, I think Mandalorian season 4 is in the works. So which that would just be voiceover. Uh, then he's also got Last of Us. That's probably got another season coming out, and then who knows, however many movies or whatever he's got. So yeah, he's got a lot on his plate. But
Which is why it's kind of like, why would it make sense for him to do this?
mhm.
Because it's a lot of money for Marvel, which they're not bringing in that much anymore, and it's a lot of time for him with how busy his schedule is. So it's like I would understand if he signed on for Doctor Doom. That would make more sense because he could do that in a role and do it the same way he's doing Mandalorian.
and
But if he did
and
Mr. Fantastic, it's like,
yeah, like with Doctor Doom, like he would only have to be on set a couple of times to do any time Doom took his mask off, or if they did an origin for Doom like before. But
mm,
you know, even though we've seen the whole origin thing for Doom twice in two bad movies, so I don't know if people want to see that again.
only if you watched it. I mean,
Well, also we've seen the origin for the Fantastic Four twice and two. Well, okay, the original Fantastic Four is just cheesy. It's kind of corny, comic booky. It's not really bad. The
yeah,
fan Four stick is bad.
I've never seen that one, and I don't really plan on it. There's no driving force in me that wants to watch that.
Hmm. Yeah. So you know, I couldn't remember if I talked about this last time, but so sticking to the whole thing with the comic book movies. James Gunn kind of betrayed Marvel, and he's over at DC now. Do you know he's actually making a
To
Superman?
be honest,
Hmm?
DC betrayed, or Marvel betrayed him first. I feel like.
Yeah, yeah, true. But he's actually he is writing and directing a Superman movie.
That's cool.
Hmm. I think Wesley's gone again. Um. Oh, I saw him move.
Well, if I'm gone, let me switch. Nope.
And I had a thing about the release date here too. Let me read through this article real quick. Um. All right, so the original release date was July of 2025. And you know all the stuff with the writer strike and everything. Everything's getting delayed at this point.
Yeah.
But James Gunn is writing and directing this movie, so he's still working. He's still worked on it. So the with Superman the name's gonna be Superman Legacy, and it actually hasn't been pushed back officially because they said with all that hasn't really affected it. So they're and Wesley's gone again.
Do we know anything about how it's going to differ from other Superman movies?
So he said he wants to go back to like some of the classic Superman movies, like like the Christopher Reeve style Superman, which
Okay, cool.
because like okay, like Man of Steel is the most recent Superman movie we've gotten, and it wasn't a bad movie, but it wasn't a good movie either.
I agree.
It's kind of eh. And see, I think Superman they can make an amazing Superman movie if they do it right and actually get Superman right. Because the problem with Zack Snyder's Superman with Man of Steel and Batman v Superman and all that is they made Superman dark.
Yeah.
Superman is not a dark character, and I think Wesley and I have talked about this before in the past. Um, I don't know if that was on the podcast or if it was on Down the Rabbit Trail and we were actually doing stuff on there, or if whatever, or if that conversation even actually got released. But because I know there were several things back when we were doing that Down the Rabbit Trail that never even saw the light of day, so I don't know if that actually got released or not. But
For
um,
good reasons.
yeah, for good reason. But uh, so,
I hope he lost train of thought.
Superman needs to be like a lighter-hearted character. That's just it works better with his character. It's like Batman said in the comics, like Batman's the like the brooding one, or the dark brooding one, but Superman, despite not being a human, is supposed to be one of the most like relatable, lighthearted characters. Because despite not being human, he acts like he's just as human as anyone else. And I hope that's the kind of the direction they go in this with this movie.
I feel like a Superman character, like if you ever talk about a character being a Superman character, it's always the idea of like this perfect person. I'm not saying he's not human, but like has like a good heart, good
Mm.
soul, good person, like great morals, like just
Well, you see,
like a good,
that's the
and that's like Superman.
and you see that's the thing about the character of Superman is being raised, a farm boy from Kansas, like and as like there's been some comic books that have kind of explored this, like the Red Sun comic books and stuff, uh, which is basically what if Superman crashed in the Soviet Union instead of Kansas. Superman could literally rule the world. Like he's that powerful. No one would be able to stop him. But because he was raised by, you know, people who are good people, or he doesn't even think about that. He like it doesn't even cross his mind.
Right.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. I don't know if you caught a lot of stuff about the release date, Wesley, because you got cut out. But basically, because James Gunn is writing and directing this movie, it's not getting pushed back when most other projects are. Well, I know y'all mentioned
Is that a 2020?
it's 2025.
Is that a 2024 release?
It's 2025, but
2025.
still,
Okay.
but still,
I knew he'd been working on writing it, but
yeah,
I wasn't sure about like release dates or anything
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, I don't know if y'all have anything else, but I've got a couple other things. But
I got one more,
all right,
which you guys might already have too. But it's the big thing this week. Well, kind of big news this week. They officially decided that they're not going to continue with the Shadow and Bone series on Netflix, and they're not going to do a Six of Crows spinoff, which is sad. But I have mixed feelings about, because I think they already ruined it last season. What is also an awesome story, and they took things from the second Six of Crows book and put them in the last season. So like they already sped their character development up. That takes like 2 books to get to. So I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it, but it's
The
canceled.
Shadow and Bones, they do have 2 seasons out, right? I've
Yeah.
only watched 1.
Yeah, there's 2
Okay,
seasons
so
out
you
now.
still need to watch the second one. But that's but that's it. That's all they're
Yeah,
gonna do.
and it does end. So the Shadow and Bone storyline was done, but they haven't done all the Six of Crows stuff, and there's supposed to be like a spinoff next, kind of that like went over the art heist, which not the art heist. I mean the ice court heist. Which
Did they say they had a reason behind it? Was it like just not successful, or like they just didn't care to go through with
it wasn't successful enough. It's probably because you didn't watch it, Wesley.
You're probably right. You're probably right. I was telling David last week that the Marvels is the lowest grossing Marvel movie of all time at this point, and I said it's because me and him didn't go see it.
Yeah,
I mean, you know,
but I'm interested in seeing it.
I would have gladly played $100 million for a ticket just to make sure that they can, meet quota.
Yeah.
So I think with Shadow and Bone, it had the same problem that I think the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is having right now. It's the fact that it's one of those things that appeals to a very specific audience.
Mm-hmm.
Like most people who have not read the books aren't going to watch it.
That's very true, yeah. And that's the thing, it's like the people who like it are very upset. Because like the people who've read the books are like, why? Like it's the audience for it is very upset and they're very diligent about watching it. But everyone else isn't really it. And I get that. I feel like if you haven't read the books, it's probably not as interesting. So
yeah,
I never read the books. I thought the first season was good, but obviously I haven't watched the second. But that's more due to time than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I haven't read the books either. I have watched both seasons, and the first season was good. The second, even from having not read the books, the second season wasn't as good as the first.
The first season, I was really happy with the way they did it. As someone who reads the books, I was very happy with the way the first season went. The second one, I enjoyed watching it, I guess. But as someone who loves the books, I hated that. Like, I hated it. So it took all my hope away for like what they could do in the future, if that makes sense. I think they kind of ruined it for themselves, to be honest.
I mean, it's Netflix. I mean, all they can do right to Stranger Things.
Yeah. Oh, that's another news though, because that's going back into production. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So, isn't the season 6 supposed to be the last season?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the all the characters are very tired of it. The actors, they're tired of the show now because it's been a while since they've been on set since last time, and they're just I don't think a lot of them are looking forward to doing this season because they've just grown up a lot. But that's at least what I've heard.
Reasonable to think that. I mean, they've been doing it for years.
I mean,
a lot of them got a lot of their starts on that. But now they've gone and done other things.
I mean,
they're bigger now.
This is the 6th season, but it's been going. That show's been going on for like almost 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing show. I love it personally a lot.
Season 1 was really good. Season 2 and season 3, I don't think were as good, but then it got really good again.
This last season was so good, though.
Yeah.
It was so good. I need to rewatch the last season. Just the last season. It was good.
Well, Wesley, do you have anything else?
Well, David, I was going to say, I have more bad news for you. I'm just going to pile it on, just crush your spirit today. We've talked about this before on the podcast, but there's some more cancellations. And from none other than Star Wars, because Star Wars loves to tell you that they're going to do something and then crushing your spirit, because what else is Disney or Star Wars under Disney supposed to do than crush the spirit of Star Wars fans? Anyways, they have stopped working. That's the quote. But they are no longer probably going to be doing the Knights of the Old Republic remake. So that is, no one from nowhere is working on that.
Yeah, because
so they are not doing it.
I didn't have that on here, but I did see that because I know a couple months ago they had stopped working on it, but now it's officially canned.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's very disappointing because that would have been great to have that. I mean, even if it's a 1-to-1 remake, like it would have been amazing to have that with higher graphics, better gameplay, like maybe even a little bit more of a in-depth story, you know, world building stuff like that. But like, that's an amazing storyline, and I would love to see that come to. I'd love to see that come to canon Star Wars. I guess technically Revan is canon because isn't he in one of the Clone Wars or Rebels shows at one point?
Uh,
Like a
I
holocron.
think they make a reference to Revan, but I don't know if he actually is canon or not.
So like in the most basic sense, I believe he is canon. But like the stories, they can obviously play with those.
Mm-hmm.
But I would love to see Revan from Legends come to. I mean, let's be honest. Revan's one of the coolest characters in Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Revan's one of the most powerful characters in Star Wars, and it's like I would love to see. You can talk about the fact that they need to make him a less powerful version. I don't always understand that because it's all fiction. So whether it's in a comic book, video game, or a movie screen, why do you have to bring a character's power level down? Like, we talk about Star Killer. Like, sure, you kind of have to bring his level down because
Well,
the
okay.
level that everyone
So,
else in the universe is.
so
That makes sense.
with
But for someone like Revan takes place in a later time, it wouldn't matter as
well,
much.
earlier, but yeah.
Later, early, same difference. It's different
Okay.
directions.
The Star Wars timeline is not canonically circular, so we.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. Get off my back.
Okay, but yeah, I mean, the reason Starkiller, like, that's an argument against bringing Starkiller into canon is because, you know, Starkiller would affect canon, the current canon. If he,
Yeah.
if he was that powerful, the current canon would have played out differently. It wouldn't make sense for him to be that powerful. But yeah, you're right. Revan being so far detached, or the old Republic being so far detached from the current canon, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And like what I love about a lot of those old stories is that if any character from that era were to come into the modern, like into the prequels, sequels, or original trilogy, they would probably destroy everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Like about anyone from that era, force wise. Like the Sith, they were. I mean, maybe Palpatine might have a run for money because he was obviously pretty powerful. But, I mean, you're talking about like Darth Nihilus and like whatever the other guy is, the Earth Eater. What's he called? You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Anyways, him, those guys, yeah, they're probably more powerful than Sidious. But, there's very few people that could rival him, but other than that, yeah, there's just not much. I mean, you could do so much with that time frame because it doesn't affect modern canon or what's canonized currently. But I also caution wanting that because I don't want them to mess it up, and I know that they probably will.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's about all that Disney Star Wars has done. They've made very few good things, in my opinion. I mean, obviously, you and me, David, have talked about it. We have different opinions about like the Ahsoka show. Other than that, I feel like we're pretty well on the same page with most of it. But still, few different opinions, and I don't like much of what Disney's done with Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's most Star Wars fans' opinions of Star Wars under Disney. And I would be afraid to see what they do with
Mm-hmm.
something going forward. But
well,
you never know till you try it.
sticking on that note of gaming, the last three things I actually have are all gaming related. So, I mentioned last week that Legends of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom was nominated for a Game of the Year. The other 5 nominees, I want to see how many of these games you actually know, Wesley. So,
I don't play game. I'm not a gamer.
yeah, that's why I want to see how many of these you actually have heard of. So, yeah, Legends of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom, Super Mario Wonder,
Mm-hmm.
Resident Evil 4 Remake. You've probably heard of Resident Evil.
I mean, I've heard of Resident Evil. I
Yeah.
didn't know they were making a new one or anything.
Well, it's a remake of the fourth one, which I think the fourth one was a
doesn't
360
matter.
PS3 game. Marvel's Spider-Man 2,
Mm-hmm.
Baldur's Gate 3. Basically, if D&D were a video game.
I mean, that's what it sounds like, but I
Yeah.
don't know what it is.
And Alan Wake 2.
Don't think I've heard of that one either.
All right. Well, from your experience with all 6 of those games, because I'm assuming you've played all of them, which one do you think is the best game?
You know, I actually didn't know that Mario Wonder came out.
Yeah, it came
I
out.
saw that in pre-order. I just
Yeah, it came out like a month ago.
went, oh, it's only been out for a month. That's probably why I haven't. I mean, I saw it earlier this year that it was pre-order or whatever, so I knew it was coming out. Haven't seen that in a while. I haven't played Tears of the Kingdom either. That's on the list, but I'd like to, I'll have all that played by the time the Zelda movie comes out. Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man, and I actually don't know what this storyline's about. I've seen enough about the first one, so if it's anything like the first one, it might be good. But it also might be bad because a lot of times Spider-Man sequels just suck.
True.
But if it's getting nominated, that means it must be kind of good. So, I'll just give my vote to that because, Spider-Man is great.
How did I know?
Or Mario. One of
How
the
did I know you were gonna go Spider-Man?
Because we did a Marvel ranking like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. What about you, Maggie?
I'm thinking it's gonna be Zelda.
So that's the only one of those games that I've actually played, and it is a really good game. But I think Baldur's Gate 3 is probably the best.
Well, did it win?
No, it's the show where they announced it is going to be in like 2 weeks. It's like December 5th or
You
something.
just left it hanging, David?
Hmm?
I thought you were gonna tell us what happened. You left us hanging.
Nope, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, how dare you, David?
Hey,
nobody likes you, David.
I'll announce it on the podcast when it happens. But
Okay.
Nobody likes you, David. Listen to me. Nobody.
all right, and so Wesley, I know a couple months ago we were talking about handheld consoles.
Uh-huh.
So the last two I have are actually handheld console related. So do you know what the Steam Deck is?
Me or her?
Well, either one of you.
Well, we've had conversations about the Steam Deck, so no, I definitely don't know what that is.
Okay.
I mean, I know what Steam is, so I can guess. What it is.
Basically, it's a handheld gaming PC.
Gotcha.
If Switch had Steam on it, but bigger.
And it's a modified version of Linux. But yeah, so they just released an OLED Steam Deck, which it's not just the OLED screen. They also put a larger CPU and GPU in it. So it's basically like the mid-gen refresh of the Steam Deck.
And how much does this cost?
Let me actually see. I actually have not priced these. I just heard them. It came out with them. But I actually have not priced them.
Didn't do your research. Wait, you said they didn't price them? I don't care. You still didn't do your research.
All right. So the 512 gigabyte version is going to be $550. Which, considering that it is a PC, is not bad. Although, I would probably prefer to go with something like the Asus ROG Ally, which actually runs Windows, and you can use it like a regular computer.
500 gigs isn't that much with most of the games, so
no.
You probably you'd want to get speaking from experience with an Xbox that has around 500 gigs, you get about 3 games and your max is full.
Yeah. And sticking on the topic of portable consoles, did you see that Sony just released the PlayStation Portal?
I went to the store the other day and I saw that they had them there. So
yeah,
I didn't realize that was new. I just know that we had talked about it, and I kind of figured that it was out not long after that.
Yeah. So, what would you imagine that it is? You'd think,
Please tell me you're not asking me because we talked about
yeah,
this.
yeah, you would think that it's an actual console. It's literally
I wish it
just
was.
for streaming. You stream from the PlayStation 5 to the PlayStation Portal, and you cannot even take it on the go. It's literally Sony literally just made a Wii U gamepad for the PlayStation 5.
And it costs like $500.
It's literally just a PlayStation 5 controller with a screen. That's it.
You know those like what thing they're called, Backbone or whatever, the things you could put on your phone to
It
play, and
does
you
the
could stream with
same
your Xbox.
thing.
No. But listen to what I'm saying. You know that thing though,
Hmm.
and you can put. I saw for Xbox, and it didn't look like that was specifically what it was. It looked like it was actually a whole entire device, but it was for Xbox, and it was sitting right next to the PlayStation version of that. So I don't know what it was called. I didn't really look that long at it, but I think the Xbox has their own version of that has come out. Um,
I
it
know.
was in the display case, and it didn't look like it was just the backbone. It didn't look like a phone. It looked like a bigger screen than a phone. On the display.
I don't think Microsoft has made an official one, but I do know there are some third-party versions of that do the same thing.
I don't think it actually had Xbox on it. It just had the Xbox display on the
Yeah.
screen on the thing, so it probably was just a third party thing.
Yeah.
But it was sitting right next to it, and but it's like, yeah, why not just
Okay,
make its own
but like,
handheld device thing?
and if you get a backbone thing for your phone, that is actually better because you can play on the go. If you have internet, you can play from anywhere.
Hmm.
I mean, you have to have good
You have to
internet,
be
but
within a certain amount of feet. You have to be in amount of you have to be around your
yes,
PlayStation to play this thing.
yes. Like I
Hmm.
said, it's literally a Wii U gamepad. Sony
Well,
literally just
hey,
made a Wii U gamepad for the PlayStation 5.
eventually they release games that you have to use both for, and see how
Again,
that
it's
goes.
literally the Wii U gamepad because that's what they did with the Wii
Yeah.
U.
I forgot about
So,
the Wii U.
and
Hmm.
yeah, we all tried to.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the one Nintendo device I've not had. I think that's like the only one. Like from like having like a Game Boy to having a Switch. Like
Hmm. Well, I mean,
I really,
you can play every Wii
the
U
old
game on the
Nintendo.
Switch pretty much.
Yeah. Well, I used to have like the old Nintendo where you like stick like the big thing in the
The
like
NES,
the games were like
the NES,
yeah, I
or
guess.
was it the SNES or the N64?
I played on it.
Hmm?
It's technically, but from when she was younger.
Hmm.
I'm saying that's like the only thing I didn't have was a Wii U, but like those things didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I think I knew like one friend who had a Wii U, and like that was about it when it came out.
You knew one of the 5 people who bought a Wii U?
Basically, yes.
But yeah, the Wii U is just not. It's well not. And Sony, like I said, Sony literally just made the same thing that a Wii U, like the novelty thing that the
What's
Wii U
funny?
had.
What's funny is Nintendo learned from their mistake and released the Switch. So
Exactly.
will will Sony learn from their mistake after watching Nintendo make their own mistake, which they could have learned from? Boneheaded Sony over here had to make the same mistake. Will they recorrect and make something, or will people
Or at
forget that
least,
the Wii U was a bad idea and buy it?
or at least make the portal like actually stream over the internet so you can play your PS5 from anywhere. Like that at least
Yeah,
has
that
some
would
kind of a
make more
use.
sense.
But
Well, then it's
Yeah.
Switch, more like a Switch.
it's literally
Yeah.
just so like if your PlayStation 5 set up in the living room, you can play it in your bedroom without having to move it. That's the only purpose for it. Like
Sorry, I have a computer. I don't need to do that. I don't know if you can do that with PlayStation, but you can do it with Xbox, and it's just
You
like,
can do that with PlayStation too.
I'm good.
You can stream to your phone and actually have it come up. But enough about the boneheaded ideas of Sony. Um,
People will buy it.
oh, they will. They will. All these Sony fanboys will jump on it. Yeah. That's all I got as far as news goes. Do y'all have anything else?
Nope.
Alrighty. Well then, let's go ahead and jump into the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes.
Now, to start off, I have one question before we go into this. You guys have read the book, right?
I have.
Okay, because I didn't want to say anything. I thought this would be really rough to talk about this beforehand if you've not read it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to spoil it. So, just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so the book. Now, granted, it's been a while since I've read the Hunger Games books, the first three. I should have reread them over the summer before I reread the Battle of Songbirds and Snakes, but I didn't. But that being said, I think the Battle of Songbirds and Snakes is probably my favorite book now. My favorite of the Hunger Games books.
I love it too. I think it took me longer to get into than the Hunger Games. Like starting to read it, I think it took me longer to get invested in it. However, once I got invested in it, I think overall is better written. I do say, I think one of the things we have to talk about starting off about this movie is in your last episode, you guys were talking about, I think it was the last episode that, I don't know if you have one coming up before that, but talking about Mockingjay Part 2. And you all were talking about how it should have been one movie. And I agree with you. On a lot of times, they make books into two movies that should just be the one. However, I brought these because it has to be said. This is Mockingjay. They made it into two movies. This is Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And they're making it into one movie. At first, I was like, maybe they're not. But then I watched the trailer, and they definitely are.
Yeah.
This book literally has part 1 and part 2 in the book. Like, it's 2 parts. And it has almost two different, like, storylines. That's like an obvious, this would be one movie, this would be another movie. And they didn't do that. And I don't think they're going to be able to do this book justice. I'm very nervous. Because I feel this is the one case where it could have been 2 different movies, which I never think that.
So I had to actually, so it's not really spoilers because I already know the general idea of the storyline, having, read through the book. So it's not, as long as they do it right, it's going to be the same story. But I had to actually look into spoilers for this when writing the script for our recap that we do every week. Now this is not a big spoiler. This is just one thing I'm saying. Obviously, it's all one movie. We all know that. They split it into 3 parts, and from what I've heard, I don't necessarily know what how they split up, but obviously that last section is the 3rd part. Basically where you think it'd be split in half would be the 3rd part. So what I heard is you get done with the first 2 parts, and you're like, oh, that was a great movie, and then you have an hour left of it, and you're like, wait. Why is this tacked on to the end of this thing?
Well,
so like they said, like the first.
Sorry,
they said that the first part of it. They said the first part of it, when you're watching those first 2 parts, is an amazing movie. But the last part, because it's tacked on the end and it feels a little bit rushed in a lot of areas, which makes sense because that last part has a lot of meat to it too, and it should have just been its own story in and of itself. Like there's so much to this, and me and Dave were talking about that, and I mentioned it to Sarah, like. There's not enough meat on Mockingjay for you to make it into 2 movies, and it's obvious when you watch them. There is so much meat in this book, that it has to have more than one. I mean, it's almost a 3-hour movie as it is, and they shove it all in here, and I'm sure that from what I've heard, it's a pretty good movie, but it could have been better if they split into 2 parts, and they really just should have. I thought for you said in when you watched the trailer, you knew that it was all one movie. I was hoping that it was like a fake out where they'd put clips, like they maybe filmed it all at one time, but they'd release it 2 different times. I was really hoping that because I knew, you watch the trailer, certain parts of it come from the end of the book. And, but I was like, maybe, and then I started watching the reviews of the movie, and they were all like, nope, it's all one movie. It's just crammed in there, and yeah. So that's one thing that I think that from what I've heard, it's still good. But I don't know, after having read the book, if I'm going to be like, man, this is a letdown because they could have done so much more with it,
Especially after, like, that first part of the book. So, the part before the Hunger Games even start. There is so much in that. Like, they can make a 3 hour movie of just like that and the Hunger Games, and the Hunger Games could only be like 45 minutes of that movie, and they still wouldn't have used up enough of that like beginning part because there's so much to the beginning of that book too.
That'd be the same formula they used in the first two Hunger Games movies, and have Hunger Games, and they could do that for that. And then in the last book or the last movie, if they were to make two parts of it, like that story has its own, problem solutions and like climax and all that they could make into its own movie.
Mm.
It wouldn't be the same style as the first two Hunger Games, but it still would play out well.
Mm.
I feel like that was their concern, that like we can't do a Hunger Games movie without the Hunger Games. So I think they were like, if we split it, then it's not a Hunger Games. But it's the last part is so good and so important, and they're basically he learns a lot from the first one. The first half of the book he learns a lot, but the second half of the book is what makes him who he is.
Exactly.
And if you get through that, like, because it really is just like the whole first of the book, his plot, his character is going like this, and then the whole second part is going like this, and you can't do it without this part. That's what literally makes him the villain later. So it's just way too important to just cut it. And I mean, I do know that it's weird. I thought while reading the book, you get to the end of the Hunger Games and you're like, how do I have this much left of the book? But it's just, yeah, I was really hoping movies.
And 2 movies would have made it real, because like imagine the cliffhanger at the end of the cliffhanger they could have done at the end of the first one if they had split it into 2 movies.
Mm-hmm.
Have it where like he's getting found out and you don't know what's gonna happen if you haven't read the book. You're like, oh, I don't know what's gonna happen to him. What's gonna happen, and then the next movie starts off with him getting shipped off. Like there's a perfect scene right there.
Exactly. And okay,
it's like she wrote it for 2 movies.
And okay, maybe because it is the same director, and I would assume it's probably some of the same writers, some of the same producers and everything. So maybe it's the fact that they don't want to repeat the mistake they made with Mockingjay. But at the same time, this is the movie they should have made 2 movies.
But again, this is Mockingjay, and this is that book. It's literally like, you can't really even see it as well on camera, but it's almost double the size. It's not quite double the size, but there's a lot more to this book.
I will say, so when I finished, I listened to the book because I have a lot more time to listen to things and read things, and I don't like reading anyways. It's not my thing. But anyways, I'll explain it to y'all. Y'all know that. You've known me my whole entire life. But anyway, so I finished listening to it, and at the end of it, it's basically like after he essentially poisons not essentially, after he poisons High Bottom, and he's kind of like going through his head. He's this is basically snow landing on top. It's the inverse of at the end of what was the first half of the book. High Bottom's like that's snow falling, and now it's like, oh, this is snow falling on top. It was just really chilling, and like I just couldn't help but like smile because it was so good. Like the way that he transitioned from at the beginning of the book, you're like, I can somewhat sympathize with this person. Like I can relate with him. He's poor. He's having to struggle. Like sure, he's not what Katniss ever was. And he's not from the districts. He's still a little stuck up in areas, but you still kind of relate with him. You still kind of feel for him a lot of the times. And even when he's like, when Sejanus is doing his thing and, Snow's over here like, don't do that. That's, you're going against the Capitol. You're like, you understand why he's in that, saying those things, even if you necessarily wouldn't do it if you're in his shoes, because you understand the districts more than he necessarily does. But the arc, like you were saying, the arc where it's like you get really into it with this character, but then you have to remind yourself, wait a minute, this is the guy who later on is this really, really bad dictator that is like so manipulative. And then by the end of the book, it's like you have no question, like, oh, yeah, this is who he's going to become. And like I personally feel like they did a really good job with it because like at the end when he's thinking of killing Lucy Gray,
Mm.
You know, the way that they lay it out, I feel like it makes sense in his mind, the way that they showed him in the way he thinks, for him to go from, oh, I love this girl, to, wait a minute, I need to kill her because she's what's between me and my life I always wanted, and
Mm.
like they do a really good job with that, and I am really hoping that they do well in the movie because that can be so good. Like I've heard the actor does a really good job in the movie, so I hope that that part gets nailed, and it's not rushed. Because if it's rushed, like you said, it's just not going to come across the same, And that's a really really key part and a really good part of that
Mm.
of the book.
Because yeah, in the book, like you do sympathize with Coriolanus, even though the whole time he ends up this evil dictator, and even through the book you see he's a self-centered narcissist the whole time. You still sympathize with him, and that's why like even if the story in this one is not your favorite of the Hunger Games books, I think this is the most well written.
I definitely agree. And that it is interesting to say though, it is well written because it shows you his flaws throughout, but it still makes you relate to him.
Mm.
What I'm nervous about and what I've heard people say online already is that it's hard to see his constant evil thoughts and the way his brain works when you're not reading it from his internal perspective. Because watch the first part and you see him do so many good things. But in the book, you know that even though he does good things, he still does them from somewhat of a selfish perspective.
Mm.
And you see the way he gets to that. But I've heard people saying that in the movie, it's so easy to forget who he is because you can't hear his internal dialogue. So it'll be interesting to see
Mm.
how they play.
Yeah,
Because in the book,
Yeah, that is
do a 180, like he does change, but it's not so surprising because you see the way his brain works.
Mm.
But you don't ever see that in a movie the same way.
Yeah, because that is a key part to the book is his internal dialogue and uh you know understanding his motivations for everything he does.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like it's like when we were talking about in the Mockingjay Part 2, the movie. In the book, it talks about the fact that, maybe Snow died from the crowd killing him, maybe he choked on his own blood. Don't
Mm-hmm.
really know. In the movie, it does not make that clear at all. Like, yes, he's coughing up blood, but it's not clear that he's choking on it, and it's obvious that the crowd kills him in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one of those things that like there's a lot of things that don't translate well book to movie.
Right. Which is why books will always be better. Personal opinion.
For certain storylines. This one definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think any book that is done from a first person perspective, you're never going to get it the exact same way in the movie, which I think is all of the Hunger Games movies as well.
Because a lot of movies have moved away from like voiceover for like internal dialogue and stuff, and most people don't want to watch that in a movie anyway. So
I wouldn't necessarily want to watch that in a movie either. Like to just hear that.
would just add.
Mm-hmm.
So CinemaSins would just add like 100 sins to it.
Yeah.
Right off the bat.
Yeah, it doesn't that doesn't flow well in a movie, and of course you also have the thing of, a movie you're restricted to like 3 hours, when in a book, the audiobook for this book is like 30 hours or something. It's insane. Or not quite that
Pretty
much.
long.
No, wait.
It's like 20s maybe, 16, something like that, 17.
No, I was okay. So I listened to
You can look
the
it
thing
up.
I had was in 2 parts. It was 8 hours and 8 hours, totaling 16. I was thinking it was 16 and 16. But yeah, it's 16 total. So yeah, but still, that's a long time. So,
It is.
and so you're basically, it's a third. The movie's a third of the length of the book, essentially. So you don't have the time to build up this story as well in the movie. And
but if only the 6 hours, they would have made up a lot of that.
yeah, yeah. I am still hopeful for this movie though.
I am too. I'm very, very excited about it.
Mm-hmm. I see what I'm hoping is that it's what a lot of people have to say negatively about it is people who have not read the book. I'm hoping that they made a movie for fans of the book.
I do too.
Because I know that does hurt movies sometimes if they make it specifically for the fans of the original property, whether it's a book, TV show, whatever. I know that does hurt movies sometimes because people might not necessarily understand the nuances and the intricacies of plot lines. But I'm hoping that is what is going on in with this movie. And let me look up the IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes scores for this real quick. If one of y'all wants to go ahead and take over
Well,
talking.
the main thing about this though is that it is meant for the fans of the series, because this is not a good movie to start with when you're coming to the Hunger Games franchise, because you're coming at it for people to see the origins of this guy who's the main antagonist for the main franchise over here.
Mm.
Like it's a villain movie, but if they do it in any way, shape, or form close to how the book is done, it's a villain movie storyline, at least done right, where it's like you don't have to make this villain seem likable, and then by the end of the movie you're like, wait a minute, how is this the person that is in this other movie over here? They actually do a good job of translating it over. But it's not for, because otherwise you don't have the attachment to this, otherwise you don't really care, you don't have the world building that you've seen.
Well, a lot of it wouldn't make
from
sense
the other
because
books, movies.
a lot of it foreshadows things that happen later. It explains how he got to that point later, why those things were put in place later, and why the Hunger Games are the way that they are later. So if you haven't watched the Hunger Games or read the Hunger Games or know anything about the Hunger Games, a lot of that stuff isn't going to mean anything to you.
And well, that's what I was talking about, like why I think the first part of the book is so important, just because it does establish a lot of the stuff that it is established later on in the franchise. But also, one thing too is with this, you also have to think about the fact that this is like 60 years removed from the original trilogy too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, which is crazy.
Like
he's old.
Like you do. Yeah. Snow is like, he's 18 in this, and this is the 10th Hunger Games, and 74th. So he's like, that's 64 years. So yeah, he's like 82. That's
which okay. So here's the thing: the actor who played Snow in the original is, I think, around 80 now, 70 or 80. When he started this, well, no, he might be only late 70s, but he's only about 60, the actual actor of it. But he does, they either caked on a lot of makeup or what, but yeah. 60-year-old playing an 80-year-old. Can you see that? I mean, hey, we get on high school, 30-year-olds playing high schoolers, so I feel like we need to call this out.
I mean, I guess you could explain it by some kind of like weird, like futuristic capital technology keeping him younger for longer, but
probably.
Yeah.
Probably. That is weird though. The thing is 60 years removed though.
See, and that's one thing when I was reading it, I was wondering if they were going to, because I knew the book was kind of in two parts, so I wasn't really that surprised that at the end of the Hunger Games part when but I was wondering if they were going to like do a bigger time jump.
It does take place in a pretty compact time frame.
Yeah, because like I said, I was wondering if like they were gonna actually jump forward to when he becomes president or something, whatever. But yeah, I didn't really. But
let's say it's about the same length of book 2 of the Hunger Games, right? Because don't they start the tour at the beginning of the second Hunger Games books? So a lot happens before. Is the tour at the end of the?
It's like a. Catching Fire is like a 6 month span.
Yeah, it's longer than the
And
other
then
one.
the I know the first part of this book is only like 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and then
Well, wait, doesn't the tour take place in Catching Fire? Doesn't the tour take place like almost right after the Hunger Games or
no,
something like
No,
it
long
starts
after it?
the Victory Tour starts
Midway through?
the Victory Tour starts 6 months after the
yeah,
Hunger Games.
it's halfway. Yeah, halfway, like in between.
Yeah. And like I said, so this is really only over the span of like 2 months, 3 months maybe. This book.
Well, it does take place during the summer. They do have that summer span, and that's like 2 or 3 months in and of itself when he goes to District 12.
Mm.
Mhm.
So, you know, that's the biggest chunk of time that they span. But the time that the Hunger Games actually takes place at the beginning of the book
Actually, that's
till
like two,
when he
three
comes
weeks.
back to the capital.
That's like 2 or 3 weeks. The
Yeah.
first part of the book is, and then yeah, there's longer time in the second part of the book.
Yeah, but still not too long because he's back in time for school next year. So.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So it is the whole summer. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. So I
Mm.
there's a lot of things that they could mess up with this movie. There's also a lot of things that they could do right. Although I think they already messed up by making it one movie. Um, but I did pull this up. So the critic rating on Rotten Tomato is 63%, which is bad, like very bad. But the audience rating is 91%.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that
Critics don't like anything. So.
well, that's kind of their job. But that's also one thing that's making me kind of hopeful that it's fans of the book who have are actually like it's made for fans of the book, Now, granted, this is just after opening weekend, so that can change very drastically because, like I said, it is just after opening weekend. Um,
Mhm.
It all depends on who goes and sees the movie, because if some people go and see the movie that don't know much about it and you just don't get into the storyline of it, and then have to sit for 3 hours and watch a movie, they might give it a bad score, even if it's still a good movie. Just it's not in their eyes. So if the people who go and see it opening weekend are probably the ones who actually care about it, and if it has a good score opening weekend, it's probably a better gauge for how you would think you'd see it, as opposed to if it just everyone's like, oh, this is just horrible. This
mhm.
is a horrible movie, and like anyone who goes see it opening day is just like, nah,
Yeah.
it's not a good movie.
Now it also has a 7 point.
Because who's going to see an opening day?
Yeah,
Fans.
yeah. It has a 7.2 on IMDb. So that's not as good as the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, but it's also not terrible. Which I think I could be wrong, but I think the IMDb, the score they have is a average between our audience rankings and critic scores. So that would
7.5 kind of.
that would put it about the right place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I am hopeful for this movie, and yeah, so I guess
We'll see.
yeah, I guess you listening at home will know how we think about it in just a couple minutes because it's gonna.
We're about to tell you.
Yep. Alrighty, so what do you say we go watch this movie, guys?
I'm so excited. So ready.
I got plans. Can't do it. No.
All right, well, Maggie, you and I can go watch it.
Sounds good.
Hey, I thought we were supposed to do this together.
We're back.
We did finally see the movie, so that's
We
a good
watched it and we're in person.
Thoughts on the movie? Maggie, we'll let you start off. What are your thoughts on the movie?
Well, let's just say it is definitely harder to watch than The Hunger Games, which is really saying something. But I will start off. It is an intense watch. Which we knew. It definitely should have been 2 movies. I think we were right on that. There's so much they left out. But overall, I think they did pretty well with what they had doing it in 3 movies. I mean, in 3 hours.
Yeah,
that's what I meant. In 3 hours, because you only can fit so much in there. And I think they did the storyline pretty well for having to take so much out of it.
It followed the book. It did. But there were so often it just went through stuff so fast.
So fast.
That was the biggest thing.
After important scene, there was no like in the middle leading up to important scene.
There's no breathing room when you're watching it. You're just constantly like it's a fire hose, and you're just trying to take in all the water, and you can't. You know, like you need a little time. You need a little time to get some air, your breath, stuff like that. And it definitely didn't give you anything like that. It should have been 2 movies.
Should have been 2 movies. We're right, but we called that.
I heard though beforehand that they were like that first part 1 and part 2, because they cut it up into 3 parts. That I heard that they said that was like a really good movie. I still feel like that was rushed though, because they didn't drag it out enough, in which they needed to. They skipped over a bunch of stuff.
So much stuff.
So like I thought it was an okay movie. I told Sarah, I said I still think, in my personal opinion, I think Catching Fire is the best movie wise. Because Mockingjay, they screwed that up. And Hunger Games is good, but I feel like Mockingjay was a step up still.
I mean,
this
Catching Fire.
Whatever. Catching Fire. But this is still a good movie. It did not feel like almost 3 hours. Like it didn't. It went by really fast.
Really fast.
You know. So that was a good aspect of it. But there was a lot that they skipped over. They rushed through, and it should have been 2 movies.
I'll say the very beginning of the movie was so exactly towards the book. The first few minutes of the movie, I was like, oh my goodness, they're following the book like line for line. This is great. Until Lucy Gray got off of the train and he handed her the rose and she took the rose. And I was like, why would she take the rose? She did not take the rose. And that's such a small thing, but it bothered me that they changed it.
I know you mentioned that when we got out, and I was like, I don't even really remember that. I mean, I read that, or I listened to the audiobook, but that aspect was like a month ago or so, and I don't remember those tiny little details. But I mean, there are certain things like that that are minor details that if you know the story from one to the other, you're like, hey, why is it different? It's so small. Why do you change that? But yeah, I didn't notice that.
Maybe it'd be the best if we go through this part by part. Maybe like talk a little bit on part 1, a little bit on part 2, and a little bit on part 3.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start with part 1. So the biggest thing to me, and I mentioned this when we recorded a bit earlier, when we were talking a lot about the book. I feel like this first part is the most important part of the book, and they really glossed over it in the movie.
Well, it's the setup of everything, and they don't set it up enough for you to really, for those who are listening / watching this, our cousin Emma, who is not really into Hunger Games, not read the books, stuff like that, said that when she was watching this, there's a lot that wasn't explained. Which there's a lot in this that if you don't know the story, isn't explained.
A lot.
And that's where the setup comes in. So like, we've talked about this before on the podcast, where like in the Hunger Games and then Catching Fire, both of those, they have the setup is the first, the 2-hour movies. The setup is the first hour, and the second hour is the Hunger Games. Well, this one took, the setup was probably, 30 minutes? At most, that first act was probably about 30 minutes?
Maybe 45.
Maybe closer to 40. But still, it's like it rushed so much setup into such a small amount of time, and then, you're not getting everything out of it that you're supposed to be getting.
There's character development that you miss, plot points that you miss, so many things like that. Things that push through the rest of the book, that really just weren't in there much.
They also really glossed over I think you mentioned this after we got out of the theater. They really glossed over through all 3 acts the relationship between Coriolanus and Lucy Gray.
Yep.
But it really started in that first act, because that's where you get all these beats that will lead into the second or third act.
One thing that I'm pretty sure I remember you mentioning when we were talking about it beforehand was that you were kind of concerned with the fact that they are not going to have the inner dialogue that you can have in the book in the movie. And when it comes to the end, I know we said go act by act, but when you come to the end of the movie, there's a lot of aspects when it comes to that is a lot of the inner dialogue. You're like, okay, why is he changing from, he's going off with Lucy Gray, now he's turning on her. I do feel like with the aspect that they didn't focus as much on the love story, it worked somewhat better for this aspect of it, like they tried it in the first 2 acts. They really tried to force that love story, and it wasn't hitting because I think the chemistry was off a little bit with that, and they rushed it. But in the last act, I think it worked well for that aspect of it because his reason for running away wasn't to run away with her. It was to run away because he didn't want to get hung. Yeah. And so when he finds the guns, it's like, well, why wouldn't he? Like, she's the last loose end. Now, I think someone mentioned it, I don't remember who it was, but someone mentioned the fact that, like, they don't remember her in the book being so, like, you know, malicious or whatever when she's like, oh, yeah, well, I'm the last loose end. You know, it was more like, that's not how it came across, you know? Like, she came across like, oh, I would tell, you know? But, you know...
I think really it was her realizing. She knew at that moment, as soon as he found the gun, that he may kill her.
Yeah.
And so that's why she ran.
But I remember, like, reading the book, like, in that cabin scene, the tension wasn't there because he was still kind of processing what he could do with this until after she ran off. Like, I think she kind of figured it out as she was leaving the cabin, but I don't feel like the tension was there as it was in the movie.
I honestly, I will say that the one thing that I might like better is the end.
I did think they do the ending.
I actually like the ending. Now, a big thing that I think they left out, I guess we're skipping ahead a little bit, in Act 3 that I think was a bad thing, is they didn't talk about the Mockingjays, which is like such a big foreshadowing.
They did really skip over that.
They didn't even explain to people who the Mockingjays are, so like we would know because we've read the books. There's no way our cousin, like we said, who have not seen the movies or know anything about the Hunger Games, knew what that was at all. But I was literally sitting there in the theater thinking, oh my goodness, they didn't even talk about how much he hates Mockingjays. Because in the book, they're like trying to catch them all, and he's like, man, I really hate them. But man, they did make them hate them at the end when she was singing. And you could hear it, and he started shooting them. That was a really powerful scene. That wasn't really in the books, but they had to do that to show that how much he hates them. I feel like
they also, in the movie, they did a good job of portraying the snap in Coriolanus. Yeah. Just,
Which was talking about that, the acting in this. I do think that all the actors in this did a really good job. They portrayed the characters very well in this. You know, and I honestly feel like the scene to scene was even like each scene was good, but the flow was really off. You know, I made a joking comment to Sarah. I was like, I want to see the director's cut because you know director's cut they always have all these missing scenes. It's like there's so many missing pieces to this that they just cut out for time's sake. Yeah, and you know. I'd like to see those, but the actors did a really good job, and whatever the actor's name is who plays Snow, he did a really good job, especially portraying at the end there, like the snap and like you know, also like the music that was involved with all that. I feel like they did Tom Blythe. Okay, we have people behind the camera this time, but Tom Blythe did a really good job with playing Snow in this movie. I think the music was really good because like you were talking about the inner dialogue's not there, but you can tell the emotion with the music, and I feel like they overlaid that really well.
That was cool to see because I can't picture hear music when I'm reading books. I just read it like it's a poem. So that was cool to see.
But like I said, that first act, though, like I said, that's real to me. That's really where they kind of messed up in the movie, just because they didn't build it well enough.
I really feel like if they drug out the first act a little bit more, the fact that they rushed the second act and the second act and the third act wasn't as big a problem. I think the third act obviously.
I think the third act was a big problem to me.
The third act is its own story in and of itself. Yeah. But I'm saying okay, if they kept it like it was and kept it like it was, but they had the building at the beginning, I feel like it would have been just a little bit better though, because you would understand more about it, because the world would have been built a little bit more than it was.
I think the problem with them rushing the first act is that that builds up the rest of the movie. The problem is the third act is what builds into the Hunger Games. And so them rushing that, they took out so much of the things that make Snow and the things that are pointing towards the Hunger Games. A lot of that got taken out. The second act, we haven't talked about it much. I'll just say, they rushed the Hunger Games. They changed the deaths to make it faster. Yeah. Overall, I didn't hate it. I don't think it was the worst part of what they changed in the movie.
I don't think Act 2 was that bad. As far as the changes they made.
I also watching it though, when they dump the snakes in, and then everyone else ends up getting killed except for Lucy Gray. I was like,
dramatic a little bit.
It's over.
Because it was a lot
already.
longer. It was a lot longer.
Yeah.
I didn't mind. I didn't mind the them killing off a bunch of them at the beginning so much, but that is just like.
But
Yeah.
what was the Rovie? That
was
sad.
depressing.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I thought that they were gonna kill her off screen, so we didn't have to actually watch it, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, Wovie died."
But her just wanting to get out and go home.
Yes, that was a very, very sad.
They were like,
sad scene.
they were like, "Oh, you think Rue was sad?"
Yeah, no, this was worse.
Yeah, it
This
was
way worse.
It was so bad.
It was way worse. There was something I was gonna say though, and I completely forgot what it was.
They also didn't build up the Coriolanus's classmates and the other tributes as much. Like,
or the Cubby. Basically, all of the side characters, all of these like other characters that are there in all these acts, just kind of got
like
they only had so much
Tigris
time.
is
Yeah.
barely in it.
yeah.
They like all of Coriolanus's classmates. You're just like passing mentions, except for Sejanus, and they even glossed over a lot of his
A
character.
lot of his stuff too. Yeah.
But like they mention it, but they don't make as big of a deal as the book does of the fact that he's not capital.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a little bit at the beginning, and like every once in a while he'll like slap you in the face with "I'm not capital," but like that's about it.
Well, that's the only thing he said the entire time.
So, now I think you were starting on this trail at one point, but at the end of it, like you're saying how like I did like the end, the way it ended. I thought they did really good with that. I think Taylor mentioned the fact that whenever he comes back after with Lucy Gray and all that, he comes back. That in the book he has the his mother's compact, a picture of the family, or whatever, and his compass in the pockets or whatever. And when the two are destroyed, but his father's compass is all that's left, and that's him becoming his father. They cut that out of it, but I did like the aspect of at the end of it when he's all dressed up and he's about to go see
she's like,
High Bottom.
yeah.
She's like, Tigress says, "You look like your father," and she says that not in a good way because of what she told him earlier about how like all she remembered of him was hatred in his eyes.
Yeah.
And you can just tell like he's starting to become Snow that we know later on down the line. Like they did a really good job, I feel like, of transitioning it from this character that you're supposed to like throughout the whole entire movie, and then at the end of it you're like, no wait, this is the guy that I'm supposed to hate in the
Which I
normal
think
series.
They did better in the movie than the books. The hatred of him at the end.
Yeah.
I think it's just because a visual is going to do it more.
Yeah.
Like usually the books are better you hear in terms of dialogue. I love them. I think they're better. But you being able to see his face and what he became, like there was something extra. Oh,
yeah, that's what I said. I really liked the ending there. Like, well, there's one thing I don't like about the ending. I'll get to that in a second. But the digression of Snow's character, I liked the way they portrayed that in the movie because they just you can see him going insane because he is, and that's why he's Snow later on in the in the later movies.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a really, really good thing. But what I don't like about the ending is I feel like they don't make it as ambiguous what happened to Lucy Gray.
See, okay, I kind of disagree with that, okay? And here's why. So, when he goes to shoot her, it hits like a tree or whatever, and it could possibly have hit her, it could possibly have not. Now, the singing after the fact, you can still have the singing even if she's wounded and she could have bled out later on. So she could still be alive and she could still be dead. I felt like that's the way that
he never found
it. Like in the way that they did it in the movie is like very similar to the way that I saw it in the book.
Me too.
Was like, oh, he may or may not have hit her, and he feels like he should have. Like he saw her in the book, he saw her fall, so he thinks, oh, I hit her. But when he goes over to see her, she's not there. Then the singing comes up, but she still could be wounded. She still could be bleeding out. And then, he never finds the body. So she could be dead, she could be alive. So I feel like they did that still really good.
But he knows that she never came back.
But she knows that she never came back.
So,
or he could be hallucinating.
Mm-hmm. And that's another thing too. He could be hallucinating with the fact that Sarah is pointing at herself, saying that she came up with that. But anyways, he could be hallucinating because he was bit by the snake. Now in the book, they do talk about the fact that the snake wasn't anything poisonous, but just with how like he thought he was dying, and it's all psychology and with the mind. You get bit by a snake, you think that there's problems to it.
Also, the thing is too, the bite in the movie was from a venomous snake because it had the fang puncture marks.
Okay, well.
Well, what was actually
they didn't mention that because they didn't show the scene
Yeah,
where
they
they went
didn't
to the
do that.
infirmary.
Yeah.
But
what was really interesting to me in the movie that was different than the books, and it's because they sped up their their whole relationship. He actually didn't seem to have any interest in her as a person, really, until she saved his life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then he switched after she tried to kill him with a snake.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the only reason he ever cared at all was because she's trying to save him.
Yeah.
And then as soon as he was like, "Oh, she tried to kill me," he like switched.
Mhm.
So, but that wasn't the way it was in the book at all. That's
Yeah.
not how his like thoughts
Arc
should have
is.
changed.
Yeah.
But
he's
in the
he's
movie,
a lot more of a sociopath
yeah,
in the movie.
in the movie because they had to speed it up. But that's kind of how it was. It was
Mhm.
almost like a switch, being like, "Oh, she tried to kill me. Well, I don't care about her."
Mhm.
Like because there's like part of him that had like a little bit of care, and was like trying to figure out what he was gonna do.
Mhm.
And then as soon as that, he was like, "Oh, I'm done."
Now, another thing with all this, too, is, so this was mentioned, with the books, you know, who's the person that he's constantly trying to fight against in this? It's Dean Highbottom, okay? Dr. Gall is kind of crazy, but she's not the person he's fighting against throughout. It's Dean Highbottom. And it was mentioned that it's kind of like at the end of the book, you find out, oh, Highbottom's actually not a bad guy. Sure, he came up with the Hunger Games, but he came up with it on a school project.
And he was drunk.
He was drunk, and it was on a school project. And Snow's father is the one that turned it in, and, you know, he never wanted to have anything to do with this, even though, you know, he gets all the credit for coming up with the Hunger Games. And in this, you know, you find out a lot earlier on that he's really not as bad of a guy as you would think, which I feel like, I don't know if that's necessarily a knock. I did feel like, and it's probably because what's his name plays the character. Who plays Dean Highbottom? What's his name? Peter Dinklage. It's probably because he plays it that he got a lot more screen time, you know.
Yeah.
But there were certain aspects I was like, why is he in this scene? You know, it's because he shouldn't have been there.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a couple different things with his character. Obviously, they cut out other characters that would tell you more about his character. But I felt like some of his aspects and getting to know his character was a little bit of a slap in the face. Like, yeah, duh. Like, I don't need to know. I don't need you to be like, hey, we were best friends. You know, like, I don't need to know that. Like, you can hint at that without just slapping me in the face with that information.
Well, they did that with a lot of things too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That is
they just slapped the information in the face,
that's another
which made it
thing.
a little awkward. Something made the acting awkward sometimes.
That's another thing Robert mentioned with the cheating thing. It's like, duh, cheating's bad. You're not supposed to cheat. You don't need to be like, hey, if you cheat, you're going to be in big trouble. It's like, well, yeah, of course you're going to be in trouble if you cheat. Like, that's obvious. You don't need to say that.
Yeah.
So there's like certain things like that yeah, they did kind of like treat the audience like they're a little bit stupid.
I think in the beginning the acting was a little awkward. At the end, I think the acting was really good, and I think it was so awkward at the beginning because of that. They were just saying things that like made no sense for them to like just say.
And I feel like that's because they had to cut out certain things that were in the book, they had to do stuff like that to explain things that happened later on.
Exactly. Yeah.
And well, that line you're talking about, you know, the when Highbottom's like, you know,
That felt
don't
extremely awkward.
cheat. Well, that wasn't even in the book. I mean,
Yeah.
that didn't need to be a thing. Because like
No.
you said, duh.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. So to start getting to the point where we're wrapping this up, we did have about an hour-ish long talk before all this. Final thoughts on the movie?
I think overall they did good with what they had. It should have been 2 movies, but I think they did overall pretty well with what they had. I liked it as a movie. I think, of course, the book's better, but as a movie, I think they did decently well with doing it in 1 movie.
I agree because like I said earlier when we were talking about kind of our thoughts on you know, what the movie was going to be like, and we talked a lot about the book. Like I said, I still think they should have done 2 movies, and the end of the first movie should have been that line from Dean Highbottom. You know, you hear that, boy? That's the sound of snow falling.
I literally
Cut.
looked over at my dad and I was like,
Yeah.
that's where it should have ended, right
Yeah.
there. That
And then,
was it.
and then,
Fade to black,
you
right
know,
there.
then hey, Star Wars has to be in every single podcast. Like George Lucas says, it's poetry. It rhymes. Snow. That's the sound of snow falling. Snow lands on top.
Should have been the end of the
In
second,
the boat.
second one.
And it's
Yep,
poetry, it
exactly.
rhymes.
Of course.
But
I agree.
but yeah, no, I mean like with the movies, like yeah, there are obviously things that are different in it. I thought it was good, not great necessarily. Sarah made this comment. I always like to whenever it comes to a book to movie adaptation, I'm like, well, the movie is a different work, okay? But when you're trying to take a story from movie to book, if you don't make a good story in the movie, it's gonna suffer. You know, if you're basically just trying, like I felt like they did with this movie. They were like, hey, we're gonna cut this aspect, we're gonna cut this, cut, and try to mesh it together. But they didn't try and do that through line, and it just didn't mesh well together with certain aspects like that.
The movie would have been really confusing I think, if you had read the book first.
Yes.
I think it would be.
Yeah, because there were a lot of things like having read the book first. There was a lot of context you have for these certain events. They're going and like you know exactly what Snow's thinking because you read it from his point of view.
Yeah.
But in the book or in the movie, you miss that because you don't.
But I will say, for the fact that it's technically a 2 hour and 38 minute movie. What I saw on like IMDb or whatever. It does not feel anything like that.
No, it didn't.
It definitely went by really quickly. And I feel like that aspect of it manages time well. It might just be because you're getting so much crammed down your throat that you're just having to sit there and watch the screen and be like, what's going on here?
There's no part where it's dull.
There's no dull. And that's the thing, is like in the book, there's no dull aspects to it. I mean, sure, there's a little, like maybe some parts that are hard to get into it, but I feel like the story, there's no dull aspects to the book. You know, so, you know, it was a good 3 hours watching the movie. It didn't feel like 3 hours to sit there and watch the movie.
No, I know you already mentioned the acting, but one thing I do want, one actor I do want to point out. I don't even know who the actor is, but Lucky Flickerman.
Oh,
amazing job. He made that first 2 acts.
Yes.
Amazing job.
He created those lines. Like, he pretty much had freedom.
It felt like it.
Yeah, he basically created those lines himself. He was given freedom.
I don't know how well that will come over up on the audio, but my sister behind the camera over here is telling me that the actor who played Lucky Flickerman came up with those lines, had freedom to do what he basically thought was...
Jason Schwartzman.
Jason Schwartzman.
You hear that, guys? They have their own researchers. That's how cool they are.
Yeah. So he came up with those lines, which a lot of times it felt like that. I was like, this had to just been something that he was like, you know, even like, it's not normally when you ad lib a line, it usually doesn't just come up on set that day. But like, you know, it felt like sometimes in the scene he was just like, I'm gonna say this, and he did it, and they took it.
It was great.
So,
he was awesome.
What do you rate it out of 10?
Oh yeah.
What do we rate out of 10? All right, what would I rate it out of 10? Oof. Starting with you.
Oh no, it's hard to say because it's like just the beginning. It's right after it, so I feel good about it. I'm gonna go with a 7 because I don't know. I just watched it, so I'm still excited about it.
Yeah, David.
It might be 6.
Yeah, I think I put it at 7 too.
I'm gonna go with a nice 7.5. Nice even 7.5 because I'm gonna be different from y'all. Because I was thinking around a 7, but I wanted to go
all
a
of their
more.
researchers say it's an 8, but you know.
Yeah. They're a lot higher. As we have Emma putting it at a 6, but hey,
she doesn't know what was happening.
It's and with not knowing what's happening, it's above a 5, so that's good. That's good.
Above average. Yeah.
Okay, so with that, let's head over to Trailcast Trivia.
Without further ado, let's do further and see.
Probably.
So what are you trying to get this time?
50% like normal. It's always the goal.
Well, I guess
So
that means I have to get a 60%.
No, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. I'm definitely at a disadvantage this time because I usually do research day of recording, and this has been a holiday week, so I haven't had my normal time to
Well, it's
do
fair
anything.
because I didn't do any research.
Yeah, but see, I usually know
we
those
also have
things.
several people behind the camera playing too, so
Great.
we're also having to compete against them. So,
Perfect.
all right. Question number 1. Start off with actually something simply. Is that your final answer?
I think it is. Okay.
Okay. Starting off something relatively easy. How old is Coriolanus Snow in the book? Is it A, 17, B, 18, C, 19, or D, 20?
We'll be doing this a little bit different than normal for those of you who are listening and trying to play along, but as normal. But when he gets done reading the questions and the options, pause it and you can play along.
All right. Has everyone got an answer?
Sure.
All right. Go ahead and reveal your answers.
I'll take B for 500,
I got
Alex.
B.
All right. All of y'all get a point.
All right, so we all got B.
It was process of elimination there. I just assumed.
I figured
You really don't remember that?
No.
Nope.
Okay.
How many questions are there?
There are 15.
Alrighty.
One of them is a bit different than what we normally do. But
Okay,
Cool.
okay,
we'll get to that when we get to that.
keep going.
Question number 2. Where did the Snows get their fortune and fame? Was it A, presidency passed down through the family? C.
B.
Crassus Snow's money from the Navy. C. Munitions in District 13. Or D. Coal production in District 12. Alright, go ahead and reveal your answers. And again, everyone has C. And that is correct.
Go ahead.
Question number 3. What does Coriolanus first say at the train station when he talks to Lucy Gray? Is it A. You certainly made an impression at the reaping. B. You're Lucy Gray Baird, correct? C. Welcome to the Capitol. Or D. Hello, I'm Coriolanus Snow, your mentor in the games.
We all have answers? We good? All right.
Well, go ahead and reveal.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, the answer was C. Yeah.
Makes
Question
sense.
number 4. Finish the lyric.
No.
I'll sell you for a blank. Is it A. Lover, B. Song, C. Trade, or D. Guitar? Alright, does everyone know an answer for this?
Yep. I'm wrong though.
I think so. Yeah.
I think I might be
Go ahead and reveal your answers. It was B.
If it was the wrong answer, it should have been the right
Y'all
answer.
didn't remember
I'll
that?
sell you for a song.
I remember that aspect of it.
Question number 5. Katie did spoil this earlier, so we'll see if you remember this.
I didn't
Who
know.
plays Coriolanus Snow in the Ballad of the Songbirds and
Dang, I should
Snakes?
pay more attention when Katie talks.
Always pay attention when Katie talks.
Is it A. Jamie Campbell Bower, B. Josh Hutcherson? You should know that. Yeah.
I think that's
C. Cody Fern, or D. Tom Blythe? Go ahead and reveal.
I knew it was D.
Question number
So I
6.
could also beat her.
When was the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes published?
Oh.
Oh, I know. Oh, wait,
Is
not
it
in the answer.
A. May 3rd, 2020.
I hate you for this.
B. May 14th, 2020. C. May 19th, 2020. Or D. May 31st, 2020.
Fourth.
All right. We're revealing now. We're gonna show our answers. Let's go.
Normally I do May 4th.
Your thing cut off.
Reveal everyone.
Oh.
Reveal.
Okay, I got B. We all put B. Hopefully that's right.
We're
That's
even.
creepy.
Yeah, but the correct answer was C.
But that's
well.
still creepy.
So is A.
May 19th. Question number 7. Why does Coriolanus initially hate the Plinths? Is it A. They're from District 2. B. They took over his family's fortune. C. They're trying to buy his apartment. Or D. They're ungrateful for what they have. Now, I will say, this question, it was another one I got from those third-party sites. It's
like a trick question a little bit.
it is because it's not. Well,
It's a trick question. Is that what you're saying? So it's not what you would think it is?
No, the problem is...
Because there's two that I think could be it. The one that should be it.
I'll explain it
if the
after.
answer is what I think it might be, it's a wrong answer.
Well, then I'm gonna circle a little one at the bottom. That's not my technical answer.
Me too.
Because I know what the other one could be.
If it's this one, it's actually the wrong answer.
It's
That's not true.
That's not.
As a someone
So
who
you
just
need
read the
to-
first part of the book
So
this
you
week.
need to be All right. Are we?
And if I'll be a little more lenient with this, good because I know this is
All right,
kind of
revealing?
phrased, but yeah, go ahead and reveal it.
Okay.
It's both.
B is not the right answer.
Well, I was gonna say for that, it's not. He could be doing it for. Wait, what's the right answer?
The answer that they gave me was they took over Samuel's fortune, which is
It's
not
not
correct.
true.
That's not
because it was the Plinths took over the essentially took over the market that the Snows formerly had.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
yes.
They didn't actually take over their
Yes.
I put
This
D.
is the correct answer.
Yeah,
That's
I see
what I
A or
put.
D because one of those two. you know,
B
they
I
could
knew was going to be what the answer was, but I knew it was
Yeah.
also wrong.
They could get, yeah, but
So who are we giving it to?
what? Yeah, what are you
I'll
doing
give
for
everyone
this?
a point.
Yeah.
What?
I get a point
Yeah,
because I
yeah.
know
What?
that's
David's
Well,
for
see, Robert has
being
C, right?
ambiguous.
Yeah, that's the only one that was wrong. I'll give y'all
I had A and I changed it because
Yeah.
you said it was a trick question.
question number 8. Who is the male tribute from District 11 in the 10th Hunger Games? Is it A. Otto, B. Treach, C. Tanner, or D. Bobbin?
For apples.
Alright, do we all have an answer?
Mm-hmm.
Alright, go ahead and reveal your answers. It was B. Treach.
That's what I had
Wait,
first!
B was Treach?
That's what I said, yeah.
I didn't listen enough.
What district is Reaper from? Is it A, District 5, B, District 8, C, District 10, or D, District 11? Alright, go ahead and reveal your answers. Reaper is from District 11. None of you got that right.
Wait, didn't you
said
just
the
say?
guy, like, from the
Yeah, you
last
just
one was
said from the last one. You said that was from District 11.
You said the male tribute.
You said the male tribute
From District 7.
You
You
said
said
11.
11.
No, that was.
You said we can go back.
No,
you
you
said
did.
11.
You did.
You
That's
said
why I was-
11, David.
So I should get 2 points. Just
I'm about to say I feel like we all need to get a bonus 2 points for the mess up that wasn't our fault.
Did you guys catch that at home?
Probably.
Okay, I guess I did misread that one. So yeah, I'll give y'all that one because that. Question number 10. Who was Mizen's mentor? Mizen is the District 4 male.
Because that helps.
Yeah. Continue.
Alright. Is it A, Vipsania, B, Persephone, C, Clemencia, Clemencia, or D, Lysistrata? Lysistrata. These capital names go. Alright, go ahead and reveal your answers.
Same. No, nothing on the screen.
It was C.
No, the correct answer was B,
Yes!
Persephone.
I knew it wasn't one of the last two.
Alright, question 11. Who plays Dr. Gall? Is it A, Ashley Leo, B, Viola Davis, C, Zoe Renee, or D, Lily Cooper?
Oh,
The
good.
answer was B,
I was on the right
Viola
track.
Davis.
I didn't write in the same card back, so I didn't get Katie's answer.
I didn't either.
I know. You were
Yeah, you just had lucky guesses.
Oh, I have lucky
Yeah.
guesses because I don't know anything.
Yeah. 3 more questions pertaining to just the franchise in general. And these are repeat questions from Trailcast Trivia.
Don't expect me to get them right. I already got 50%. Let's move on.
Alright. So, question 12. Which Hunger Games did Haymitch win? Is it A, 47, B, 50, C, 53, or D, 55? And y'all got it right, I know that. Yeah.
All right, next question.
Alright.
No.
Question number 13. The arena in Catching Fire is set up like a clock, with a specific event happening every hour. What happens in the second hour? Is it A,
Oh, no, I'd rather
the
still-
giant wave, B, the monkey mutts, C, the poison fog, or D, the blood rain?
All right, do we have answers?
Yes.
All right.
Go
let's
ahead and
go.
reveal.
B.
Correct answer was C.
Dang it. I almost,
What was C?
I almost did that.
Poison
and I didn't
fog.
trust
Poison
myself.
fog. Okay. And that was what, 2?
You know,
2 o'clock?
that makes sense.
I just
Yes.
guessed.
Second hour.
Good job.
Second
I
hour.
almost
Okay.
did that, and then I was like, I don't know.
Last question, question 14.
Mhm.
When is Katniss Everdeen's birthday?
Mhm.
Is it A, January 12th, B, May 8th, C, August 21st, or D, October 16th?
I was wrong.
All right, ready?
I know it's not whatever May was, unless I'm wrong in that.
It was B, May 8th.
May.
Oh, so she has a birthday right before the reaping.
Alrighty.
Or
So,
that's
Katie,
it.
do you have a final tally for our...
I do.
Alright, would you
Yeah.
like... I can read it off unless you want to get closer to the mic.
Oh.
So, the final tally, we had 4 people playing. Maggie was... is it side and side, or is this how many we got right?
That's all the ones you got right.
Okay, so Maggie got, what's that, 8 right. I got 11 right. Sarah got 10 right, and Robert got 10 right. So who won? 50%? I got that. Who won? I got that. All right. Maggie, would you like to close us out? Because this is the end of the
Yeah, I
Trailcast.
had a tiebreaker, but I guess I don't need it.
No.
Well, the real thing is, next time you probably should have someone who knows more about the book, because obviously it's not me.
Okay.
But you know what? Snow still lands on top.
That's not how we end our podcast, but okay. All right. Well,
Subscribe.
thank you for
Follow.
watching, and be sure to join us next time on the Trailcast. It will definitely be more structured than this.
Well, maybe.
No promises.
Yeah.